In the annals of history, few monarchs have left a legacy as tumultuous and controversial as Henry VIII. Known for his 6 marriages and the English Reformation, his reign was marked by power, passion, and peril. But what if I told you that the end of his life was as dramatic as his rule? Today we unravel the gruesome and mysterious demise of one of England's most infamous kings. Was it a curse, a consequence of his own actions, or something far more sinister? Stay tuned as we dive into the dark and dreadful death of Henry VIII. Henry, however, got the brass ring, born royal and healthy. He's usually described in his youth as handsome and athletic. He managed to rule England for some 38 years before wine, women, pork, and physical activity took their toll. Biography attributes the turning point in his deteriorating health to a leg injury he suffered while jousting. His horse crushed him, leaving him unconscious for 2 hours and far more sedentary than he used to be. His appetite, per the Tudor society, had led him to consume 5,000 calories daily, much of it consisting of meat and red wine. His circulation was terrible, especially in the legs, which deteriorated into 2 weeping varicose ham hocks. As Henry's weight increased, his health further deteriorated, and nothing seemed to help. Not even the most up-to-date medical procedures, like the letting of his blood in accordance with the waxing and waning of the moon. That kind of thing helped. It's not like they didn't try, for goodness sake. Then came January 27, 1547, his day of reckoning. Everyone knew he was dying, but no one was willing to say the words out loud. It was considered treasonous to predict the death of a king. Nevertheless, it was clear the king was nearing death, and so Sir Anthony Denny had the unenviable task of suggesting that Henry might want to examine his royal conscience and make his peace with God. Henry spent time with his confessor and received Holy Communion. Henry proclaimed that he believed that Christ in all his mercy would pardon me from all my sins, yea, though they were greater than can be, as indeed they might have been. After all, wives and royal advisors weren't the only people Henry had executed during his reign. According to On the Tudor Trail, estimates do vary widely, but some historians suggest as many as 72,000 people died under Henry's order during his nearly 40 years on the throne. By 1545, he was carried around in a kind of sedan chair called the King's Tram, lugged by 6 sweating attendants. The 1542 inventory of royal possessions uncovers Henry's hidden vulnerability. It includes 3 walking staffs, all fitted with whistles in the top, as well as 2 leather trunks or loudhailers used for shouting. The king was very rarely alone, but even so, he now needed to be able to summon help in an emergency by frantic blasts on his whistles or bellowing through his shouting trunk. It is apparent that he dreaded falling, and as he now weighed more than 28 stone and had weak legs, he would have required considerable help in getting him back on his feet. By 1545, Henry's eyesight was failing. He was purchasing wire-framed spectacles from Germany, 10 pairs at a time, and was forced to give up signing state papers, something which he never enjoyed doing anyway. Instead, a wooden block with the royal signature carved in raised letters was impressed on documents, and the imprint inked in. Henry VIII's famous tantrums were not only a legacy of the Tudor genes. Following his father's insistence on him leading a cloistered, protected life after he became crown prince, Henry began to exhibit signs associated with a narcissistic behaviour disorder. It is characterized, among other things, by exaggerated feelings of self-importance and a chronic lack of empathy towards others. When boxed into a corner, the victim lashes out violently. In Henry's case, his conviction that he ruled with God's divine approval intensified the symptoms. As God's deputy, when Henry Tudor prayed, he always knew God listened. In the 1540s, his mental condition deteriorated further. Henry was frequently depressed, suffered violent mood swings, and became increasingly psychotic and paranoid. This, coupled with his gross obesity, his moon-like face and slow healing wounds, indicates that he was suffering from Cushing syndrome, a rare endocrine abnormality triggered by excessive levels of the hormone cortisol. Where did this disease come from? Research suggests that traumatic brain injuries, like the one he suffered in the Greenwich Joust in 1536, caused such neuroendocrine effects. Towards the end of his life, Henry suffered another indisposition of his legs, but rallied after his doctors cauterized his legs with hot irons to burn away the infected tissue. Nonetheless, it was approaching the time that the king would meet his maker. His doctors knew it, but they were terrified to warn their patient that he was dying. On 27th of January 1547, Sir Anthony Denny had a conversation with Henry. Henry agreed that he should see Thomas Cranmer, Archbishop of Canterbury, but first, he said, "I would take a little sleep." These were to be Henry's last words. Shortly after uttering them, he sank into a coma. Henry died at the age of 55 years and 7 months. He had ruled England and Wales with a mailed fist for 37 years and 281 days. The Tudor dynasty would continue. Through the succession was fragile, with no assurance of a spare male heir, as Henry VIII himself had been. Nonetheless, after 2 wives divorced, 2 more executed, another dying after childbirth, and a terrible litany of stillbirths, miscarriages, and postnatal deaths of his progeny, it was something of a miracle that the Tudor line lived on. Henry VIII died shortly afterwards, probably around 2 a.m. on Friday, 28 January 1547, probably from kidney failure. Henry had planned a magnificent royal tomb almost from the start of his reign. It was going to boast of his power and might for centuries to come, with no one left to gainsay its proud message in marble and metal. To this end, Henry had quite casually acquired great chunks of Cardinal Wolsey's tomb after his downfall in 1529, including a black sarcophagus on which a cardinal's effigy was supposed to rest. In this grandiose project, Henry was thwarted, just as he was thwarted in his choice of wives, thwarted in neutralizing the Scottish threat, thwarted in his ambitions to win back the crown of France, and thwarted in his quest for a decisive battlefield victory. The tomb, which was never finished and Henry never placed in, was destroyed in 1646, and Henry's own great bronze effigy was melted down to raise money to pay the garrison of Windsor Castle. 4 angels, also appropriated from Wolsey's tomb, were incongruously placed on the gatehouse of Harrington Hall in Northamptonshire, which is now a golf club house. They disappeared, and years later, and the Victoria and Albert Museum bought them for $5 million in 2015. In 1804, plans were made for a new mausoleum beneath Henry VIII's tomb house, and his monument's last vestiges were swept away. The black sarcophagus made for Wolsey and appropriated by Henry was recycled once again, this time for Admiral Horatio Nelson's tomb in the crypt of St. Paul's Cathedral,